Hello, welcome to another episode of Awakening with Soulspirational. I'm Tish, and today I'm talking about mindfulness. I love being mindful. This is one of those things where it's simple, but it isn't always easy to do. And it isn't always easy because the mind is busy doing what the mind does. But sometimes we have so much going on in the mind that we could really use a break, whether in meditation or practicing mindfulness. You may already be aware of what mindfulness is. You may already be practicing this at home. But if you're not, part of the reason why I do these episodes, these videos, is to try and reach out to people to show you that you can do this stuff too, to make it more down to earth. So I share with you different ways that I learned, just because I was one of those people, I'm never going to be able to meditate. Mindfulness, it's been a 20-year journey even with mindfulness. So I am going to talk about what it is today. I am going to talk about some different ways that you can practice mindfulness to start bringing it into your everyday life. And when we get to stop, oftentimes that's when we get the aha moment. Because we've settled down some of the thoughts just going around in the mind, so we can all of a sudden create space for that clarity to drop through. Maybe you've been struggling with making a decision of some kind. You may find that practicing mindfulness helps to bring out that decision for you. So I'm going to give you the definition of mindfulness as given by Jon Kabat-Zinn, Z-I-N-N. To me, he is one of the leaders in mindfulness, especially here in the West. I really like how he explains this. So he says it's paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the moment, and non-judgmentally. So let me say that again. We're paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, non-judgmentally. I'm going to give you a list of the benefits, just some of the benefits. Here are some. Can help to lower blood pressure, can help to reduce stress, which the vast majority of us can use that help. Lowered anxiety levels. And again, that's something that a lot of us deal with. It has helped me on my journey with the bad anxiety that I used to feel, that I carried with me. Mindfulness and meditation, as well as the healing journey that I was on, it all was part of the process of reducing my anxiety. Less rumination, less emotional reactivity. And it can help with better focus, clarity, and attention. And it can also help to boost the memory. So those are just some of the things that there are studies out there, again, finding how mindfulness truly can help us. So when we think about the definition of mindfulness, again, paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, non-judgmentally. When we keep this in mind, again, it's something that is simple, but it isn't always easy to do because the mind is doing what it's doing. It will wander off. You may find that you're practicing mindfulness and then all of a sudden you're over here thinking about work. You just come back to the moment. Come back to the moment of being mindful. To me, that's part of the beauty of this. It's not like you have all this extra work to get back over in the moment. You're just back in the moment, if you choose to be. One of the ways in which I like to practice mindfulness is in mindful walking or mindful walking meditation. What I'll do is I will walk in my backyard from one side over to the other side. And I will go back and forth for half an hour. Normally I have it broken down in 10-minute increments. So the first 10 minutes with every step, it's a step. And then I'll shift things up a little bit when I go into the second 10 minutes, step lift. So it's like I'm mindful of what each one of my feet are doing. And then in the last 10 minutes, I'll do a step lift shift so I can feel my hips as I am getting ready to take the next step. So that may be a little too much for people, and that's all well and good. I want to throw it out there, but you can spend however much time, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour, walking mindfully, where you're just saying step. And then when other thoughts come to mind that isn't about your walk, about the steps, you just gently acknowledge the thought and brush it aside. We can do this when we go to the park. So if you're out, you're taking a walk, whether it's in a city street or if it's in a park, pay attention, be mindful of just what's going on where you are. So if you're taking a walk through the park and you notice like the sound of the leaves under your feet, or a squirrel running by, you pass somebody on the path, maybe it's them and their dog, you're being mindful of your walk through the park. Anything that isn't about your walk, any thoughts that come to mind that don't pertain to the walk, just gently acknowledge them and brush them aside. This time is for you, cut out for mindfulness. As you're doing this, again, it helps to quiet the mind. So again, if you're struggling with something, you may find that on your walk, being mindful, the clarity sets in. Or you may find that you're even more relaxed at the end of the walk because you're not walking thinking about all the stuff that you have to do. And this is your break. Oftentimes people love to just take a break, get out in nature, take a walk, and oftentimes people are still thinking about everything that is going on in life, the things that they have to do. When you can bring it back into the moment, pay attention for a particular reason, in the moment, on purpose, non-judgmentally. The non-judgmentally part, how I see this and feel this and have used this, is if you find that you've been walking for a few minutes, all of a sudden your mind has wandered off to work. Again, bring it back to the present moment. If you hear yourself saying, my mind, it just keeps wandering, I'm going to ask for you not to get frustrated. Don't beat yourself up about it. The mind is doing what the mind is supposed to be doing. Just bring it back to the present moment and then get back to your walk. All these beautiful things that you're seeing as you're walking. Another thing that you can do is mindful eating. So where you're paying attention to, maybe you have fruits or vegetables on your plate. You can think about maybe where your fruits or vegetables came from. Even if you don't know, just imagine maybe somebody picking the fruits or vegetables. Think about how it made its way to your plate. Every step, every movement while you're eating, you can be mindful of. What does the swallow feel like? And one of the great things about mindful eating, we tend to eat much slower, unless you're already a slow eater. We tend to eat slower. We are being mindful of what we're eating. And instead of just eating slow as we're thinking about work, but we're trying to slow down, just by being mindful of your food on your plate, you'll find yourself slowing down because you're thinking about it, you're mindful. How many of us eat mindlessly? Oh, I scarfed down that, the ice cream sandwich mindfully. I don't even remember eating it. I just ate it. So I love mindfully eating. And when we are doing these things, you don't have to do this every day. If it feels like a chore, maybe you make it every Tuesday night for dinner, you do this. Or every Thursday morning for breakfast, you're going to eat mindfully. Start somewhere. And if you notice that it's been 2 or 3 Tuesdays or Thursdays or whatever, and you haven't eaten mindfully, that's okay. It's a process. You're learning, you're trying to keep it in mind, being mindful. And if you hear yourself say, I should be more mindful, remember, don't should on yourself. It's like we're just adding extra stress and tension. Either do it or don't. But when you decide to be mindful on those Tuesday nights or Thursday mornings, you just gave yourself however much time you spend mindfully is that much more that you didn't have the day before. Every bit, again, whether it's 2 minutes, 20 minutes, 2 hours, every bit is going to be beneficial for you. And it'll get easier over time. It may be 3 months from now you decide, oh, you know what? I think I'm going to try that mindfulness thing again. That's brilliant. There's no judgment of it's been 3 months. No, and if you hear yourself say that, stop it. And oftentimes that's what gets us to push something away because we don't want the added stress of, ugh. No, love the moment of it. Love being mindful. Open up, allow yourself to be. When it comes even with mindful walking, you can tell yourself, hey, maybe you wake up in the morning and say, every time I walk to the bathroom, I'm gonna walk mindfully. And you may find that once or twice during the day, you were able to walk there mindfully, but you totally forgot by the time you got out of the bathroom. That's okay. So be grateful for all the times that you are practicing it. When we are practicing mindfulness, we can do this on pretty much anything. I love to do this with my grandchildren. And this is another one that isn't always easy because sometimes the girls may get into a little argument, so then I'm interjecting with a little bit of a different mindset. But to put the phone down and say, I'm going to give myself, you can say 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Put the smartphones away. Otherwise, tell yourself I'm putting the smartphone aside or the tablet, whatever it is, and I'm going to pay attention to my children or my grandchildren on purpose. In a particular way, I'm going to be in the moment, and I'm going to do so non-judgmentally. I love just observing my grandchildren. Sometimes there's so much going on, it's harder for me to be as mindful in a particular way that I'm laying out. But it's something to start, if you haven't already, to really start considering. So the phone is aside and you're watching. With me, their hand gestures or the way that one of them likes to dance more than the other one does. So maybe the way that she's dancing, or with my little grandson, his different facial expressions. To me, it's sacred because I really get to lock on and be in the moment with these beautiful beings. Each of them with their own personality. I can see their light, each one of them. It's just, I love it. The way I started was being mindful when I was washing dishes. So any thought that came to mind that didn't pertain to doing the dishes, I gently acknowledged and just brushed that thought aside. And I got back to the act of dishes. Now, sometimes I would get a good chunk of the dishes done before I realized, oh, wait a minute. I'm supposed to be practicing mindfulness, no judgment. Get back into the moment and then finish the dishes mindfully. And if you forget and maybe you load the dishwasher and you come back in to unload, be mindful as you're putting them away. You can be mindful when you're in the shower. Now, for a lot of us, that's also a great time to think. I get a lot of, in my mind, some really good ideas when I'm in the shower. But there are times where I will just practice mindfulness. Anything that doesn't pertain to my shower, any thoughts that come to mind, I gently acknowledge them and push them aside. Now, it could be while I'm practicing mindfulness, be it in the shower, doing dishes, watching the kids, going for a walk. Again, that's when like that epiphany, that aha moment comes through. Because I've slowed down all this stuff that's running through my brain to this more stillness. My mind may not be completely still, but it's a whole heck of a lot more still than it was before I started. This was also good for me when, as a single parent for many years, there were times with the stressors of my job, of my business, and kids are kids. So they're going to push boundaries. Siblings are going to get into arguments. And I noticed that the more tense I was of my day, the easier it was for me to react in the moment when the kids weren't getting along. So there were times where I would give myself a timeout, age dependent. It was more so as they got older. I would go into my room and I would close the door and I would breathe. I would go into a light state of meditation and allow myself to come back down. Instead of being all up here, if I'm tense about something, And when we think about the tension, oftentimes we can feel it in the face, up in the shoulder. Sometimes we may even feel that tension into our stomachs, the rest of our body. But a lot of times I would feel it in my upper portion. So then as I'm breathing it out, I'm allowing that tension to release. I'm being mindful of releasing my tension. That way I can bring my temperature down, and then I can get to the state of reminding myself, okay, they're kids. They're sister and brother. These things, it's just part of life. They're not always going to get along. And I was able to approach them in a much better state of mind by practicing mindfulness and or meditation. So I'm just throwing it out there if that helps anybody. So again, anything that you decide, anything that you're doing, you can do mindfully. Again, be it 2 minutes, 20 minutes, or 2 hours. If you want to combine mindfulness with meditation, what you can do now, when you're doing meditation, take yourself into a place where you are not going to be interrupted, a place that is quiet if you can. So if you do have kids, maybe after they go to bed or before you go to bed, if you wake up before them, maybe you can fit in a few minutes of meditation prior to starting your day. And then what you can do is just focus on your breathing. Focus on your in-breath. What does that feel like to have your belly rise? And we want to try and do belly breaths instead of chest breaths. The chest breaths sometimes can almost feel like an anxiety. We're breathing up here. Try to breathe down into your belly and exhale. Now, usually I'll do a few deep breaths first, just to help calm my body, just to get, it's like I'm readjusting myself. I'm settling into my being. And then as you return to normal breathing, just pay attention to that in and out. The in, the out breaths. If a thought passes through that doesn't pertain to your mindful breathing, gently acknowledge it, brush it aside, and then get back to paying attention to your breaths. One of the things I like to do in meditation is to have pen and paper close by. So if there's something that keeps jumping up, or my mind's, oh, you gotta change over laundry. Don't forget, you're gonna do this. So if you set meditation, you're gonna forget about that. If you have pen and paper nearby, you can just write down whatever that is, so you can rest your mind, rest assured, say, hey, we know. I'm not gonna be bothered, I'm not going to forget. As soon as I open up my eyes, it's gonna be right here looking at me, so I can release it. Get back into you. And when you can just feel your being, that quiet. Growing up the youngest of 5, there was never quiet. And then I got married and I had a couple of kids, and when I was going through my divorce, when my ex-husband, he would take the kids and it was just me for the weekend. And they say silence is deafening. That's what it felt like. And it felt like silence to me was somebody sitting on my chest. I didn't know how to be silent because there's just always somebody, always something going on. And back then I lived in the city too. Having the cars or the ambulances, the police cars, there was always some type of stimulation. And I learned, because that's when I had started my journey 20 years ago, just how golden silence is. And I got from a place where it was frightening for me to be alone and to be in quiet, to craving it, because my soul, I learned so much in the quiet and the stillness. And when I could just listen to me, to just be with me, I'm just sitting, I'm just being still. I'm just being me. There's just, again, something sacred in the moment to just be. So that's been my experience, and I just wanted to share that with you. Some things that I've done, things that I still do, things that help me, things that I help and show others. I wanted to share it with you. If this helps to plant a seed, or maybe you haven't practiced mindfulness in a while and this sparks it back for you, that's wonderful. So that's mindfulness in a nutshell. I want to bring it down to brass tacks. I want to bring it down to earth. What can I do right now to just get started? I don't want to have to read all that stuff. I don't want to get all the videos. Just stop right now. Pay attention on purpose in the moment without judging. That's it. That's it. Just pay attention in a particular way in the present moment on purpose without judgment. So if you're getting ready to eat dinner, after you watch this, mindfully eat. See what it feels like. And it may be uncomfortable at first if this is something new for you. It's a process. It's a process. It may take you a few times. And those few times may be spread out over a few months or a few years. I would not be doing what I'm doing today, or the person that I am today, without all those stops and starts and stops and starts. And through my journey with mindfulness and meditation, every one brought me closer. Every time I meditated, every time I practiced mindfulness, brought me closer to this moment. Once again, thank you so much. Be well, and namaste.